So namaste everyone. What are we going to do today? We are going to make use of the basic things that we have learned in the lectures of App Lab, and we are going to design a voting system. Okay, through those basic things, using those basic things. So first of all, we are going to come on the App Lab environment, and the first thing that we are going to do here in this environment is to design the app. We are going to design the app first. Now while designing, if you want to give it a feel, if you want to give your design a kind of good feel, so just make sure one thing, that the colors that you use while designing, they should be attractive. How can you make them attractive? There is a simple funda. The background color should be dark, and the foreground color should be light. Okay, the text that you are using on the foreground, as a foreground you're using, it should be light. That's how also you can make it attractive. And one more way you can make it attractive is, you can keep the background color as light and the foreground color as dark, so it will give a good feel to your app. So for this screen, I'm going to keep it red. Fine. And I'm going to pull a label from here. So the first thing that we are doing is we are designing the app. Okay, so I'm going to name it as, here I'm going to write down welcome to the voting system. Fine. And now what is the color I'm going to give to this text over here? Let us give it a white color, because as I told you that this red is a dark one, so the text color should be light if we want to give it a feel, if we want the app to look good. So where is that white color? Yeah. I think I need to move it like this. Okay, let me just increase the font size so that the font may be more clear. Font may look more clear. Now that's better. Now what we are going to do, we are going to define the white color for this. I am trying to change the color. I'm not able to find it right now. Just a second. We can make use of this paint also for finding out the values of RGB for this white color. So what is the value of RGB? It is 255, 255, 255. So that's how we can. Let me just remove it and put it here one more time. Text color, I'm going to keep it as white. Now it is fine. And what is the text that I want to get reflected over here? I want to get reflected this text, welcome to the voting system. So that's gonna be the text which is going to get reflected right on the home screen. Let me just increase its font size. The style of this font is not looking good. Let me just try and change the font family for this one, and let's choose this Georgian. Yeah, that's looking pretty cool. So, and what else? Text alignment. That's fine. Okay, let us increase this font size to 45. How is it going to look like if I'll make it 45? Yeah, that's cool. Can we make it somewhat more bright? Somewhat bright. Yeah, now it is fine, I think. That's fine. So this And one more thing that we are going to have on our home screen is a button, so that we can navigate, to the other screen. So the name that I'm going to, the text that I'm going to give to this button is tick vote, and the ID of this one will be, let's say, vote 1, because it is on screen 1. So let us give the ID to this button as vote 1. And what else? Let us change the color of this button to, I'm going to define a black color. Okay, so now it is looking pretty good. What else now we need to do? Now we'll be creating a new screen. So for that, what we can do is we just have to click on this new screen option that is available in the cascading menu, and automatically a new screen will get created like this. Now what is the color that I'm going to give to this? Let us give it a dark green color. Yeah. And here we are going to again have a label. The text that I want to get reflected over here is want to vote for. Fine. Okay, we are again going to define white for this one. Okay, and what else? Let's increase the font size to 30 is not looking good. 45, yeah, 45. And let me change the font family for this text. Okay, now it's looking cool. What else do we need to have? Now we are going to make use of radio buttons in this application. So we are going to have 3 radio buttons. And how can we enlarge the size? We just have to keep the cursor like this on this radio button, and then we need to drag it to enlarge the size of this radio button. So that's how we can increase the size. Now what we can do is we can just copy this and paste it in order to create a second radio button. Okay, that's how we can create the copies of the radio buttons. It's pretty simple, right? It's very simple. So we are going to put them in the same line. Now it is looking great. Okay, so what else we are going to have? We are going to have 3 different text, 3 different labels for all these 3 radio buttons over here. So this one is the first label, and if suppose you want to vote for a favorite subject, so you can just choose this radio button. You can just check this radio button over here, and I'm going to increase the font size too. Let me make it 20. How about 20? Yeah, 20 is looking fine. Now I'm going to create a copy of this label, and I'm going to put it here. So this I'm going to use for the second radio button I have defined, and here I want to reflect favorite sports. If you want to vote for your favorite sports, you can select this option. And what else? If you want to suppose vote for your favorite dish, so you can define a third label also for that. So now we have got 3 different options. The user can select any one of the 3. And one more thing that we are going to have is a button over here. If I keep it here also it will look good, and here also it will look good. I need to keep it in the center, right? And I need to move it to the center to this one also. The center I need to move it. design should be perfect. If you want the user to find the app interesting, if you want the user to find your app interesting, you have to work on the designing part a lot. Just the more design, the more the attractive the design of the app is, the more the user will find it interesting in using. Okay, so just try and make some, you know you can play with the design part and try and create something which is very attractive, which is, you know, which can attract the users. So this is what we are going to have on this screen, and yeah, that's looking pretty good. So let us define some background color for this button also. Okay, what is the color we are going to have? If we'll keep it, we need to keep it somewhat light, or if we'll make it white, how is it going to look like? No, not good at all. If I'll make it if I'll choose red for this, then, this is looking fine. Yeah, this one is fine. So now here what we are going to make it, what we are going to get reflected over here on this button is let's vote. Fine, that's what we are going to get reflected over here on this button. And now what else we need to have? We need to have one more screen. So in this lecture, I am going to tell you about how can you code for this option, so that you can code for the rest to yourself. Fine, so we are going to have one more screen on which we are going to have the options for the favorite subject, right? Okay, instead of creating a new screen, fine. So the first thing that we can have is an input button over here, where the user can input his name. Okay, what is the color that we can define for this one? Let's define a blue color. How about a blue color? Dark blue, how it will look like? Yeah, that's looking pretty cool. And enter your name. That's what is going to get reflected over here in this input box. And the text color, let us choose a complete, and font size, let us, if I'll make it 30, no, it is not looking good. Yeah, 20 is fine. How about Georgia? And text alignment, if I'll define it, yeah, now that is looking good. Okay, so now what else we are going to have on this? We are going to have 4 options. So, and for every option we are going to have an image button also. So this is the first option then that I am defining here. Okay, and this is going to be the, here we are going to get we are going to have the second option. And for this also we are going to have an image over here. You can define for the choice part, if you want to get the choices reflected over here, you can make use of the drop down also if you want. Okay, but at present in this application I am making use of image buttons, right? Designing is very important. If you can design, if you can give your app a good design, if you can define a attractive design, an attractive design for your mobile app, you can win the heart of the user. So make sure that whenever you are making any application, try to define a very good design for the scene. You can work it out in the rough first, and after that, once you're done with, you know, once you're clear with all the things, then try to implement the things. So that's how we are going to get the, you know, images sorry, options and choices reflected over here. This is looking pretty insane. It's good. What else we require? We require one button also over here. Let us put it over here. Okay, if you want, you can, keep the images somewhat. Yeah. So that's where also now it is looking more good, I think. Yes, it's fine. Now we are going to pull them down to okay, and we are going to pull this one also down. This one also we are going to pull it down. I think now it is looking perfectly fine. We are good to go with the design of this third screen now. Okay, so whatever, now what else do we require? We require some images to get reflected over here, right? So that the user can make the selection on the basis of the scene. So for the favorite subjects, we are going to have some images on these images buttons. So the first subject, okay, I don't have anything on my desktop right now, I think. So I will be downloading it from the internet. So let's have Hindi as a first subject, because Hindi is our national language. So let's have, because the background color is dark, so we are going to keep this one will look good. I think I'm going to copy it like this, and this is how you can create the images in the paint box like this. When you need to save it, okay, let me save it with this Hindi. This is the first image that I'm going to have on my this first image button. And what's so this is the first option. Now the second option, let us select computers, because I'm a computer teacher, so I'm going to prefer computer as the defining the second choice as computers. For this we can have this image. This is looking pretty attractive. And we are going to save it with some other name. Let's save it with computers only. So that's how you can define the images for all the image buttons. And, I think you must be learning about how you can create the images too. And for this third one, let us define signs. Okay, now yeah, this is looking good. So we just have to copy the images and paste it here in the paint, and try and keep the size of all the images same, so that size. And while you are checking my lectures, please do not skip any part of the lecture, because I don't want you guys to memorize any code. I want you guys to understand everything. I want you guys to understand the basic uh, what is the fourth subject we are going to have. Let's have history. Okay. So I want you guys to understand the concept and logic behind everything. Rather, instead of memorizing things, try to understand the logic and concept. Then only you will be able to, and then only you will be able to make something creative, something innovative. Try to use those concepts once you're done with, understanding the concepts. Try to use them in some other way, so as to create something new. That's how you need to work out on your things. So the fourth one, we are going to keep it as, let's name it as history for now. And now we are going to import it in this so that's how you can import you import all the three images. Let us define some border for these images too, so as to make it somewhat okay. White, how about white? If I define border width, that's border width. I'm defining border width as 3, and the color that I am giving to this one is this. And here, how about fill? That's good. So border width for this one also, it's going to be 3. Border color will be white. For this one also, I'm going to make the changes. Not the design, I want to define the border color first, and then I need to change the border width to 3, and here fill. So these are some basic things that you can do very easily. So I think we are done with our designing part, and this button I am going to give the ID to this button as submit, and the text that I want to get reflected on this one is submit response. Okay, and what is the color that we can give to this button to make it look more good? How about light green? How about this one? Yeah, this one is looking good. We can use this one. Okay, now we are going to design the last screen. The you know the screen the user is going to come on once he's done with voting. So I'm going to, okay, let's let us use this image for uh, designing the last screen. So this is what the image, this is the image that we are going to have. Okay, now on the last screen we are going to have an image button we are going to have like this, and we are going to enlarge it, or we can keep it. Okay, now this is fine, and the image that we have saved some while back, we are going to upload it on this image button. What was the image? It was, okay, this was the image that we saved some while back, and we are going to import it. Okay, how about fill? Yeah, that's looking pretty cool. What is the text that I want to get reflected over here? I want to get something reflected over here too. Thanks, let's say thanks for voting. Okay, that is going to be the text. It is going to get reflected on the last screen. Okay, now it is looking very good, I think. How about this? Oh, I think if I'll make this size, I need to keep the size of this, I need to reduce the size of this image, right? Then only I think it will look good. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So now we have 4 different screens. On the screen 1 we have got a text, we have got a label and a button with ID vote 1. On screen 2 we have got 3 label boxes, 3 radio buttons. Let me just change the ID of this radio button, and I'm going to rename it as radio 1. This one I'm going to rename it to radio 2, and this one I'm going to rename it as radio, what is the idea of this one? It's radio 2. It's okay, this I'm going to rename it as radio 3. So we have got 3 different buttons over here. And what is the idea of this let's vote button? Let's vote. And now what is on the third screen? We have got 4 image buttons, and the ID that I'm going to give to this one, let us give it S radio 1. Okay, this is the ID that I've given to this radio button. To this one I'm going to give S radio 2. To this one let's give it an ID, say S radio 3. And to this one we are going to give S radio 4. So these are the 4 IDs. What is the ID of this button? This button's ID is submit. And what is the ID of this input? Input 3. Fine. And now what else do we have? We have this last screen. The user is going to get redirected to once he is done with submitting his response. So now we are going to come on the code window in order to code all the things. So the first thing that we are going to code is this button. So for this we are going to have an on event box. And what is the ID that we are coding for? We are coding for this vote button over here. So what is the ID of this vote button? Let us just check that out. The ID of this button is vote 1. So I am going to select vote 1 from this drop down list. Okay, now where do I want to get redirected to? Once the user clicks on this button, I want him to get redirected to screen 2. Okay, so for that, the block that you can use for redirecting the user to screen 2 is the set screen block. the user is going to now get redirected to this screen 2 with the help of this code. Now what I want is, now the user is going to, when the user is going to come on this screen, he is going to make this selection from here. Now let's suppose this user selects this favorite subject option. Okay, and once he's done with selecting this favorite subject, he'll click on this let's vote button. So we need to capture his response first. So when you're dealing with radio buttons, what you have to do is you just have to check the response of the user, check the choice that the user has made. So for that, what you can do is you can make use of an if loop. Okay, so let us first define an on event block for this. Okay, for this button let us define an on event block, and after that we are going to make use of an if loop. Fine. And what is the ID of this button? The ID is let's vote. And what is the ID of this radio button? It is radio 1, of course. Okay, so what we want is, we want to take the input of the user, we want to read the input of the user. For that we are going to use an if loop, and we are again going to, now if the user chooses this, now how can we define that? Using this get property option. Okay, now if in the get property of radio 1 button, if the radio 1 button is checked, fine, if the radio 1 button is checked, now what I want is, I want when the user clicks on this button let's vote, the user should get redirected to screen 3. Okay, that's what I want. So that's how I'm going to code the app. So here is a set screen option, and I want the user to get redirected to screen 3 when if he selects this first option and clicks on this button. Fine. Now we are going to come on screen 3 and we are going to code for these this input box and these 4 radio buttons and this button over here. Now what we can do is, first of all we are again going to make use of this on event block. Okay, and what is the ID of this button? It is submit. Fine, so we are going to choose the ID submit from this cascading menu, and now we are required to we want, what I want is, whatever the user inputs here, okay, as his name in this input box, and whatever the selection user makes from this thing on this screen, whatever the user selects, I want to store his response in the form of a table here on my data browser. That's what I want. Okay, so how can I do that? That's what I need to think about. So for that, what we can do is, see, for creating a table, what we require is, we require a block. Okay, and the block that we require for creating a table is create record, right? So now the name of the table that I'm going to give is, that I'm going to define is, let's say favorite subject. Okay, this is going to be the name of the table. Now what else? So here we can define the 2 fields. The first field is for the name of the user, and the second field is for the selection that he is going to make on this screen out of these 3 radio buttons. So let's define 2 different fields for that. So we already have a field with this name. Okay, and I want the compiler to get the name from this input box. So again, what we can do is, we can make use of this get text block over here. Okay, in order to read the name that the user is going to input in this input 3 Okay, input 3 id box. And the second field that we need to have is the choice. Okay, what is the user going to select? If suppose the user is going to select this, if he's going to check mark this S radio 1 button, so what I want is, for that I need to define an if loop first. Okay, so I am going to define an if loop just after so that's how we can define a if loop. I think I am making some mistake here. Okay, so in the choice I'm going to have Hindi. If suppose, okay, I think I have made some mistake here. Let me just I'm removing this whole code, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to define the this on even block first. Okay, for this button submit response, the whole code is going to remain the same, but I think it's not taking the code. There is some mistake that I am making. Where is that submit button? It's the submit button. Okay, now what else do we require? We require an if loop so that we can read the input of the user. For that purpose we require an if loop, and in this if loop what we want is, we want to read the output of this radio button 1. So if get property, where is that get property block? So if the radio button 1, if this S radio button 1 is clicked, okay, is checked, what I want is, I want a table to get created. Okay, I want a table to get created. Where is that? Create record. Okay, I want a table to get created on the apps browser. Fine, with this name, favorite, the name of which should be favorite subject. Fine, and what else do I want? I want two fields to be there in that table. The first one should be name, and the value of this will be fetched by the input that the user is going to make here in this input box. So I am going to make use of this get text block here. Okay, and here I am going to change the ID to input 3. Fine, and after that, what is the second field that I want to define, that I need to define? The second field is choice, and if suppose the user check marks this radio button, the choice he's making is Hindi. So that's what is going to get defined in the choice part. Okay, I think I'm done with, yeah, now it is taking the code. So I'm done with defining the code for this button and for this radio button 1. Now if I want to define the code for these 3 radio buttons, what I need to do is, I just need to copy this if loop. Whatever code I have defined in this if loop, I just have to copy that code. The whole if loop I'm going to copy, and I'm going to make the required changes. S radio 2, the table is going to, the name of the table is going to remain the same. Okay, and here we are going to have input 3 only, and here in this what we are going to have, okay, computer is the second option. Computer, Fine. So in the same way, am I making some mistake over here? Fine. What else do we need to have? We need to define the code for the these two radio buttons also. So in this also we are going to have S radio 3, and here we are going to have science. Fine. Now what else? The fourth thing is S radio 4. Okay, and the choice will be history. Now let's see whether we'll be able to get the correct output or not. So let us run the app now. When I'll click on this button, I want to get redirected to screen 2. Just a second. Let me just refresh the whole code. I think it is hanging a lot. So let us now run the app and see whether it is working fine or not. So I have got redirected to this screen 2. Now if I'll make this first, okay, it is not getting selected. What is the issue? Let's see. On event submit. Okay, let's vote. On event submit, click 1, get property, screen 2. What is the ID of this? The ID of this is radio 1. Have I defined? Okay, I have defined radio 1. Okay, let's see, is there anything that I have missed out? Radio 3, and it is radio. Okay, it should be radio 2, and it should be radio 3. Now I think I'll be able to run the code. So again I am getting the same error. Not able to select the first. Not able to select this first radio 1 button. Why is it happening? That we need to check out. Radio 1. Yes, these all 4 things are for the third screen. Let's vote. Okay, get property, radio 1 checked, set screens 3. That is absolutely fine. So what is the problem? Just a second. Okay, just a second. I think I'm making some mistake here. It's the ID that I've given to this one is radio 1. The ID of this button is radio 3, and the ID of this button is also radio. Let me just remove this button for now. I'm going to remove this one also. Let me select this radio button for this one, and instead of making a copy of radio buttons, let's have a separate radio button. is fine. So this is what I'm going to give it as an ID. Now let's see whether our app will work fine or not. So now I think I'll be able to select this first option. Yeah, that's working fine. What is happening? I do not. So I think radio 1 is the okay. This is the code that I've defined for this one. Let's see whether now we'll be able to get the output or not. Yes, we are. If I will enter my name here and let us make I'm choosing computers for now and I'm submitting my response. So I'm not getting redirected to the last page just because I think I haven't defined the code for that. So let us define a code for that too. Let me just delete this. So we do not have any table right now over here, and I'm going to define the code for this, for getting redirected to the last screen. So for that, where can I define the code? I can define it just after the if loop. Okay, so that's where I'm going to get redirected once I'm done with submitting my response. So now if I am, let me just try and run the app now. This is a selection that I'm making. Let's vote. If I choose computers, what's gonna happen? Gaurav Kumar Jain is the name that I'm giving, and I have submitted my response successfully. And when you'll come on this data, you will get to see the table has got automatically created here. So here is the response of mine. Okay, the response that I have submitted. So this is the whole code. You can check it out once. Fine. And for if you want to save your project, you just have to click on this rename, and I'm saving it with this name, voting system. Save. And if you want to share, if you want to see how it is going to look like on a laptop or on a computer, so you can just copy the code and paste it in the URL part of your browser. So that's how the app is going to look like. See how attractive it is looking right now. Abhinav. Okay, Hindi I'm making as a selection. So let's see whether we have received the response of Abhinav or not. Yes, we have received the response of Abhinav. So that's how you can code a voting system in the app lab. Thank you very much for joining me in this session, and hope to connect with you in the next session too.